The guttering candles cast elongated shadows across the stone walls of the chamber. Outside, a March wind howled through the narrow streets of Paris, but within these thick walls, 7 men sat in uneasy silence. They formed a circle around an ancient oak table, upon which lay a parchment bearing the papal seal. None wished to be the first to speak of what it contained: the death warrant for an order that had stood for nearly 2 centuries as the sword and shield of Christendom. It was the night of March 18, 1312, 5 years after King Philip IV of France had ordered the mass arrest of the Knights Templar across his realm. 5 years of torture, false confessions, and political maneuvering that would culminate tomorrow with Pope Clement V's official dissolution of the order at the Council of Vienna. But history rarely records the shadows behind great events, the clandestine meetings where fates are truly decided. This was one such gathering, hidden from the chronicler's quills, but whose consequences would echo through centuries. Brother Arnaud de Fougères pulled his cloak tighter as he rode through the gates of the small Templar commandery. Once, such places had bustled with activity. Knights training in the yards, sergeants maintaining equipment, servants tending to the daily needs of an order that had grown from 9 poor knights to a military and financial power spanning Christendom. Now, the yard lay silent, most of its inhabitants arrested years before, during Philip's surprise purge. The few remaining were those who had escaped the initial arrests or had been deemed of little importance. They lived in the shadows, awaiting their fate, neither free men nor officially condemned. Arnaud dismounted, his joints protesting after the long journey from Paris. At 46, he was no longer the fierce warrior who had defended the last Christian strongholds in Outremer. Those days seemed distant now, belonging to another life entirely. "Brother Arnaud," a voice called. A tall, gaunt figure emerged from the main building. "We had begun to fear you would not come." "Brother Guillaume," Arnaud clasped the man's forearm in greeting. "The roads are watched. I had to take precautions." Guillaume de Nogaret nodded grimly. Once the preceptor of this commandery, he now served as its de facto leader, though the order's hierarchy had largely collapsed under the weight of the persecutions. "Come, the others are waiting." Inside, 3 more men rose as Arnaud entered, all Templars of senior rank who had somehow avoided arrest. Their faces showed the strain of 5 years in hiding or under house arrest, awaiting a judgment that seemed perpetually delayed. "Brothers," Arnaud nodded to each in turn. "Brother Thibaud, Brother Renaud, Brother Jacques." "What news from Paris?" Thibaud de Chalon asked immediately. The former Templar treasurer had aged considerably since Arnaud had last seen him. "Not here," Arnaud replied. "Let us wait until we are all assembled." "All?" Renaud de Provence raised an eyebrow. "Who else comes?" "One who may yet save what remains of our order." An hour later, as darkness fell completely, a knock came at the door. Guillaume opened it to reveal a figure in the robes of a Cistercian monk, hood drawn forward to conceal his face. "Cardinal Arnaud Unveil," the man announced quietly as he lowered his hood. "I come at great personal risk." The Templars bowed to the cardinal, one of Pope Clement's closest advisors and a man known for his integrity, a rare quality in the papal court that had relocated to Avignon under Philip's influence. "Your Eminence," Guillaume said, "we are grateful." "Save your gratitude," the cardinal replied grimly. "I bring no good tidings." The door opened once more, admitting a final figure, smaller than the others, with the fine clothes of a merchant beneath his traveling cloak. "Ah, Master Villani," Cardinal Unveil nodded. "You have arrived safely. As safely as one can travel in a kingdom where gold speaks louder than God," the Italian banker replied. Francesco Villani represented the powerful Florentine banking houses that had watched the persecution of the Templars with growing alarm. If Philip could destroy the Templars to erase his debts, what might he do to other creditors? "Now we are complete," Arnaud said. "Let us speak plainly, for time grows short." They gathered around a table in the commander's private chapter house. A map of Europe lay before them, markers indicating Templar properties, once numbering in the thousands, now seized by the crown or church across much of Christendom. "The situation is dire," Arnaud began without preamble. "I have come from Paris with news. The Council of Vienne reconvenes next month, and Pope Clement has prepared the Bull of Dissolution. The Order of the Temple will officially cease to exist." Though they had expected this, the words still fell like hammer blows on the assembled men. "After all our service," Thibaut whispered, 200 years of blood spilled in defense of the faith. "Faith matters little in this affair," Cardinal Unveil said wearily. "This has always been about power and wealth. Philip's treasury was depleted by his wars with England and Flanders. The Templars were his largest creditor." "And the charges?" Jacques de Morel asked, his voice tight with anger. "Heresy, blasphemy, idolatry. Do they persist with these lies?" "They do," the cardinal confirmed, "though His Holiness knows them to be false. The sheen on parchment of 1308 records that he personally absolved the order of all heresy charges. Yet he proceeds with our destruction nonetheless," Guillaume said bitterly. "The Pope is but a prisoner of circumstance," Cardinal Unveil defended his master. "Philip threatens schism if he does not comply. Already the French crown speaks of establishing a national church under royal control." Francesco Villani, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "Let us be practical. The order as it existed is finished. The question now is what can be salvaged." Arnaud nodded grimly. "That is why we have gathered, not to lament what is lost, but to preserve what can be saved. Brother Guillaume, tell them of Portugal." Guillaume looked up. "King Dinas of Portugal has refused to persecute the Templars in his realm. He has offered protection to any who can reach his shores." "And Spain?" asked Renaud. "In Aragon, our brothers will be absorbed into other military orders," Cardinal Unveil explained. "The Order of Montesa will receive many of our properties there. So some branches survive, while the trunk is cut down," Thibaut observed. "There is more," Arnaud continued. "Cardinal Unveil brings a proposal directly from Pope Clement, one not to be spoken of outside this room." All eyes turned to the cardinal, who took a deep breath before speaking. "His Holiness proposes a compromise, one that may satisfy King Philip's bloodlust while preserving something of the order. The Templars as an institution will be dissolved, but a new order will arise in Portugal, the Order of Christ, which will inherit Templar assets there. Elsewhere, properties will transfer primarily to the Hospitallers." "And what of our brothers imprisoned across France?" Jacques demanded. "What of Grand Master Jacques de Molay and the other leaders held in Paris?" A heavy silence fell over the room. "Some sacrifices cannot be avoided," Cardinal Unveil finally said. "The Grand Master and the senior leadership, Philip demands their blood." The Templars exchanged dark glances. "This is not justice," Guillaume said. "This is surrender." "It is survival," Arnaud countered. "The Order's knowledge, its traditions, some of its wealth, these can continue, even if under different banners." Francesco Villani cleared his throat. "There is another matter we must address, the Templar treasury." All eyes turned to him. When the arrests began in 1307, much of the Order's portable wealth disappeared. Philip has been searching frantically for it ever since. Thibaut, the former treasurer, kept his expression carefully neutral. "The king found considerable wealth when he seized our Paris temple." "But not all," Villani pressed. "Not the reserves, nor certain items of significance. What concern is this of Florence? Jacques asked sharply. The banking houses of Italy have a vested interest in ensuring Philip's strategy does not succeed completely, Villani replied smoothly. If sovereigns learn they can simply destroy their creditors, commerce throughout Christendom will collapse. Cardinal Unveil raised a hand. This meeting has a purpose beyond lamentation. We must decide, here and now, what will become of the Order's most precious possessions, both material and spiritual. Guillaume de Nogaret, keeper of the seals and King Philip's most trusted advisor, stared coldly at the messenger kneeling before him. Repeat that, he commanded. A gathering at the commandery near Poitiers, my lord. Cardinal Unveil travels there in disguise, along with an Italian banker and several Templars who escaped arrest. Nogaret's thin lips curved into a smile. He had been Philip's architect in the destruction of the Templars, crafting the false charges, orchestrating the simultaneous arrests, and personally supervising the torture that produced the needed confessions. And you are certain of this? Yes, my lord. My source is a servant at the commandery. They believe it concerns the Templar treasury. Nogaret rose from his desk. The king will be most interested. He has never believed that we found all their gold. He tossed a coin to the informant. Continue your watch. Send word of any departures or new arrivals. After the man left, Nogaret made his way through the palace to the king's private chambers. Philip IV, called Philip the Fair for his handsome features rather than any sense of justice, was reviewing documents when Nogaret entered. Sire, Nogaret bowed. I have news of the Templars. Philip looked up, his cold blue eyes showing interest. At 44, the king remained an imposing figure, tall and regal in bearing. What news? A clandestine meeting of surviving Templar leaders, along with a papal representative and a Florentine banker. Philip set down his quill. Where? A commandery near Poitiers. They gather in secret even as the Pope prepares to dissolve their order. To what purpose? I believe they seek to move what remains of their treasury beyond your reach, sire, and perhaps certain relics they are rumored to possess. Philip's expression darkened. The Templar affair had begun as a financial expedient, a way to erase the massive debts he owed the order and seize their wealth for his depleted treasury. It had evolved into something more complex, a test of royal power against papal authority, with the Templars as pawns in the larger game. Cardinal Unveil, you say? One of Clement's inner circle? Yes, sire. Then the Pope plays a double game with us, Philip said. He negotiates the dissolution of the order with one hand while helping them preserve their wealth with the other. It would seem so, sire. Philip stared into the fire for a long moment. We cannot move against a cardinal directly. That would give Clement the moral authority he currently lacks. He turned back to Nogaret. But we can ensure this meeting bears no fruit. Send word to Enguerrand de Marigny. Have him take a company of men to observe the commandery. When the gathering disperses, I want those Templars arrested and the banker detained before he can leave French soil. And the cardinal? He is to remain untouched, but ensure he understands the consequences of interfering in affairs of state. Nogaret bowed. It shall be done, sire. As he turned to leave, Philip added, and Nogaret, I want to know what they discuss. Every word. As night deepened around the commandery, the discussion within the chapter house grew more intense. The treasury must be protected at all costs, Thibault insisted. Not for the gold itself, but for what it represents, the independence of our order from secular control. The treasury is already secured, Arnaud replied. Distributed to safe locations across Christendom and beyond. What concerns me more are the archives. Cardinal Unveil nodded gravely. The records of the order contain sensitive information about royal finances throughout Europe. If they fall into Philip's hands, he gains leverage over every monarch who ever borrowed from the temple. Some records have already been seized, Guillaume reminded them, when they took the Paris temple. But not all, Thibaut said. Not the master ledgers, nor the correspondence with the Holy See dating back to our founding. Francesco Villani leaned forward. My associates can ensure the safekeeping of such documents. The banking houses of Florence have secure vaults where even kings dare not intrude. And what would Florence demand in return for this service? Jacques asked suspiciously. Access to the Templar banking methods, Villani replied honestly. Your order pioneered techniques that revolutionized the movement of money across borders. That knowledge is worth more than gold. Arnaud nodded slowly. It seems a fair exchange. Our methods survive, even if our order does not. There's another matter, Cardinal Unveil said quietly. The relics. The room fell silent. Beyond their role as warrior monks and bankers, the Templars had been custodians of relics recovered during the Crusades. Some were well known, fragments of the true cross, saints' bones, sacred texts. Others were spoken of only in whispers among the highest-ranking members of the order. The known relics will transfer to the Hospitallers with our other properties, Guillaume said carefully. As for the others, those that Philip specifically seeks, they must never fall into secular hands, Cardinal Unveil insisted. The Church must. The Church, Jacques interrupted bitterly. The same Church that abandons us to Philip's mercies? The same Pope who absolves us of heresy in private while condemning us in public? Brother Jacques, Arnaud warned. No, let him speak, the Cardinal said. His anger is justified. 5 years of watching my brothers tortured and burned has earned me the right to anger, Jacques continued. De Molay and the others rot in Philip's dungeons, while Clement wrings his hands and does nothing. The Pope has done what he can, Cardinal Unveil defended. The Chinon parchment, a document hidden away while good men die, Thibaut cut in. What use is a private absolution when public condemnation follows? The Cardinal had no answer to this. What becomes of de Molay? Renaud asked, breaking the tense silence. Will the dissolution spare him? Cardinal Unveil looked down. I fear not. Philip demands exemplary punishment of the Grand Master and the senior leadership. It is the price of allowing the rest of the order to be absorbed rather than executed. So our leaders are sacrificed to save the rest, Guillaume said bitterly. A coward's compromise. A necessary one, Arnaud countered. Would you rather see every Templar burn? The Order's mission has always been greater than any individual, even the Grand Master. And what is that mission now? Jacques demanded. What remains of our purpose when our order is dissolved? To endure, Arnaud said simply, to preserve what we have learned and discovered, to ensure that what we have protected remains safe until such time as the world is ready for it. Francesco Villani, who had been listening intently, spoke up. There are rumors, legends of discoveries made beneath the Temple Mount during your order's occupation of Jerusalem, objects of immense spiritual significance. The Templars exchanged glances but said nothing. Such rumors have always circulated, Cardinal Unveil said carefully, but this meeting concerns practicalities, not legends. Indeed, Arnaud agreed quickly. We must focus on what can be done before the Council of Vienne formalizes our dissolution. Brother Thibaut, you will coordinate with Master Villani regarding the financial records. Brother Guillaume, you will make arrangements for those who wish to join the Portuguese branch. Brother Renaud, you will see to the relics, the acknowledged ones, ensuring their transfer to the appropriate Hospitaller commanders. And you, Brother Arnaud, Jacques asked. What will you do? Arnaud's face was grim. I am going to Paris to speak with de Molay one last time. Outside the thick walls of the chapter house, a light snow had begun to fall, covering the commandery grounds in a thin white blanket that muffled sound and obscured vision. Perfect conditions for the shadowy figures that now moved through the darkness surrounding the compound. Enguerrand de Marigny, Philip's chamberlain and Nogaret's right hand, signaled his men to hold position. They had arrived an hour earlier, 20 royal soldiers moving silently through the forest that bordered the commandery's lands. Now they formed a loose cordon, ensuring no one could leave without being observed. "Remember the king's orders," Marigny whispered to his lieutenant. "We wait until they disperse. The cardinal is not to be touched, he travels freely. The Templars are to be arrested, the banker detained and his papers seized. And if they resist," Marigny's cold smile was visible even in the darkness, "then they die as the heretics they are." Inside, oblivious to the trap closing around them, the council continued their deliberations. "There is one final matter," Cardinal Unveil said as midnight approached. "The question of succession." "Succession?" Renaud asked. "How can there be succession when the order is dissolved?" "The visible order, yes," the cardinal acknowledged. "But as Brother Arnaud has suggested, your mission, your true mission, need not end with Pope Clement's declaration." Understanding dawned on the faces of the Templars. "You propose a hidden continuation," Guillaume said slowly. "A shadow order." "I propose nothing," Cardinal Unveil replied carefully. "I merely observe that throughout history, traditions and knowledge have survived persecution by going underground. The early Christians in Rome, the scholars of Alexandria, there are precedents. And the Church would permit this?" Thibault asked skeptically. "The Church need not know everything," the Cardinal said, his expression unreadable. "Some matters are between God and those who serve him." Francesco Villani studied the Cardinal with newfound respect. "Your Eminence surprises me. I had not expected such pragmatism from Clement's court." "Pope Clement understands more than he can publicly acknowledge," Cardinal Unveil replied. "He acts under extreme duress from a king who has already demonstrated his willingness to use violence against the Church. The attack on Pope Boniface at Anagni showed how far Philip will go." "So Clement sacrifices us to save the papacy," Jacques said bitterly. "He sacrifices the shell to preserve the essence," the cardinal corrected. "The visible structure may fall, but what the Templars truly are, what they have always been, can continue." "Under whose leadership?" Guillaume asked. "De Molay will surely perish." "That is for you to decide," Cardinal Unveil said. "Here, tonight, before you part ways." The Templars looked at one another, the weight of the moment palpable in the silence that followed. "It should be Brother Arnaud," Thibault said finally. "He has maintained communication between our scattered brothers. He has the trust of those who remain free." "I cannot," Arnaud shook his head. "I go to Paris. My fate is likely sealed alongside de Molay's." "Then Brother Guillaume," Renaud suggested. "He was the preceptor here. He knows the networks in France." Guillaume looked uncomfortable. "I am known to Philip's men. I would bring danger to any contact." "What of Portugal?" Jacques suggested. "Brother Thibault could go to King Denis, help establish the new order of Christ as a true continuation." Before Thibault could respond, a sharp sound cut through the night, the clear, distinctive note of a hunting horn, followed by shouts and the clash of weapons. "We are discovered!" Guillaume moved quickly to the window, peering out into the darkness. Royal soldiers, they surround the commandery. Chaos erupted within the chapter house. The Templars, warriors by training despite their years, immediately moved to defensive positions. Guillaume barred the heavy oak door while Jacques extinguished most of the candles, leaving only one guttering flame. "How did they find us?" Renaud demanded. "We have been betrayed," Arnaud said grimly. The question is by whom? All eyes turned to Francesco Villani, the outsider among them. Not I, the banker said quickly, raising his hands. Philip would as soon see me dead as any Templar. I have arranged financing for his enemies in Flanders. Then someone in the commandery, Thibaut concluded. A servant, perhaps. Cardinal Unveil moved to the center of the room. Recriminations can wait. We must act now. Is there a way out of here besides the main door? Guillaume nodded. The Templars always build with siege in mind. There is a passage beneath the chapter house, leading to the forest beyond the walls. Then we must use it, the cardinal said. Take only what is essential. We must separate and make our way to safety individually. As the others gathered their belongings, Arnaud approached the cardinal. Your Eminence should leave first. You must not be captured in our company. And you, Brother Arnaud? I will delay them, Arnaud said simply. Someone must. The cardinal studied the Templar's face for a moment, then nodded. God be with you, my son. Guillaume had moved a heavy tapestry, revealing a small door set into the stone wall. The passage is narrow and low. You must go single file, bent over. It emerges in a ravine a quarter league from here. One by one, they descended into the darkness. First Cardinal Unveil, then Francesco Villani with the document case containing the financial records, followed by Thibaut, Renaud, and Jacques. Guillaume was the last, pausing to clasp Arnaud's arm. God grant us another meeting, brother. If not in this world, then the next, Arnaud replied. Now go. After Guillaume disappeared into the passage, Arnaud replaced the tapestry and moved to the main door. He could hear men outside, trying to force entry to the main building of the commandery. It would not take them long to reach the chapter house. He took a deep breath, drawing the sword he had carried concealed beneath his cloak. It had been years since he had wielded a blade in combat, but some skills never truly fade. When the soldiers finally broke through the chapter house door, they found a single Templar waiting for them, sword in hand. Lay down your weapon, the lead soldier commanded. In the name of King Philip. I recognize no authority of Philip over the Order of the Temple, Arnaud replied calmly. Only God and the Pope command us. The Pope has abandoned you, Templar, the soldier sneered. Your order is finished. Perhaps, Arnaud acknowledged, but not tonight. He attacked with sudden ferocity, the skill of his younger days returning in a rush of disciplined violence. 2 soldiers fell before the rest managed to surround him, and even then he fought on, buying precious minutes for his brothers to escape through the hidden passage. In the forest beyond the commandery walls, the survivors emerged one by one from the hidden exit, gathering briefly in the shelter of the trees. We cannot stay together, Cardinal Unveil said decisively. We must separate now. Where will each of us go? Thibaut asked. Better that none knows the destination of the others, the Cardinal replied. If one is captured, they cannot betray what they do not know. And our plans? Jacques pressed. All we have discussed here must be carried forward by each of us in our own way, Guillaume said. Brother Thibaut, you should indeed go to Portugal. Help build the Order of Christ as our continuation. I will, Thibaut agreed. Brother Renaud, see to the relics as planned, Guillaume continued. Ensure they reach safe hands. And you, Brother Guillaume? Renaud asked. I go south to those commanderies that remain free of Philip's influence. There are brothers there who have not yet been arrested. Jacques, the youngest of them, looked uncertain. And I? You must reach England, Guillaume decided. King Edward has been reluctant in his persecution. There are brothers there who may yet be saved. Francesco Villani adjusted the document case secured to his body beneath his cloak. I return to Florence. The banking houses will protect what I carry. And I to Avignon, Cardinal Unveil said, to do what I can from within. A distant shout from the direction of the commandery reminded them of the urgency of their situation. "God be with us all," the cardinal blessed them quickly. "Until we meet again." They separated, melting into the darkness of the forest in different directions. Jacques de Molay, 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, stood upon the scaffold erected on the small island in the Seine. Beside him was Geoffroy de Charnay, preceptor of Normandy, both men prepared for death. For 7 years, de Molay had endured imprisonment and torture. He had confessed under duress, recanted his confession, then been forced to confess again. Now, as the executioners prepared the fires that would consume him, he asked to speak. In the crowd gathered to witness the execution stood a hooded figure, Arnaud de Fougères, who had survived the raid on the commandery only to be captured later in Paris. Released due to lack of evidence against him personally, he had come to bear witness to the final chapter of the order that had been his life. De Molay's voice rang out across the hushed crowd. "I confess that I am indeed guilty of the greatest infamy, but the infamy is that I have lied. I have lied in admitting the disgusting charges laid against my order. I declare, and I must declare, that the order is innocent. Its purity and saintliness are beyond question. I have indeed lied, but I lie now if I admit to foul crimes. The order is pure, the order is holy, the order is innocent. I am ready to die." As the flames were lit, de Molay continued, his voice never faltering. "God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Soon a calamity will occur to those who have condemned us to death." Arnaud watched silently as the flames consumed his Grand Master. He thought of the meeting at the commandery, of the plans they had made, of the brothers who had escaped. Some had reached Portugal, where the Order of Christ now continued their traditions under King Dionysius' protection. Others had found refuge in Scotland, beyond Philip's reach. The archives and financial records were secure in Florence, and the most sacred relics had been hidden away from the grasping hands of kings. The visible order was gone, but its essence, its knowledge, its traditions, its true purpose would survive, passed down through generations of initiates who would keep the flame alive. As de Molay's ashes scattered on the wind, Arnaud turned away from the grisly scene. He drew his cloak tighter and disappeared into the crowded streets of Paris. One more shadow among many, carrying the secret knowledge of the Knights Templar into an uncertain future. In the years that followed, Philip IV and Pope Clement V both died within the year, as if struck down by de Molay's final curse. The Capetian dynasty that Philip had sought to secure would collapse within 14 years. But in Portugal, the Order of Christ would thrive, eventually sponsoring the explorations of men like Henry the Navigator and Vasco da Gama, carrying the Templar cross on their sails as they opened new worlds. And in secret gatherings across Europe, men would continue to whisper of the Templars, of their treasures and their knowledge, of the mysteries they had uncovered beneath the Temple Mount. The legend would grow, becoming something greater than the historical reality, a symbol of hidden wisdom and resistance against tyranny. The Order was dead. The Order would never die.